But a couple things I've noticed is I've been using Enscape for batch rendering. You'll notice that it always puts these timestamps on it, so you have to kind of go to date modified to find out which one's the last one to do, especially if you've done a lot in your last few hours. So one thing that you can do, it's kind of dependent on how many renderings you're probably going to be doing, is you can render it separately one by one. I haven't found another way of doing it. Everything I've searched for doesn't come up with anything. So if you just click on this, you can just name it what you want to name it and render it that way. So a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's kind of, you have to decide what's worth your time, because now I'd have to go in and do this too. The other thing I did, I turned my Revit material for this to something that is just white. The reason I did that, I think, is going to be pretty obvious as you look at the renderings. The concrete was weird. I just used this clad white, and then I made sure that it was just using a 255 perfect white as it's rendering, and made sure nothing else is showing up. And then that's going to give me a really nice rendering. You know, if you have sidewalks and it's going to be concrete and whatnot, then this is not worth it, but you can see it's already very clean. So I created those two things. All right, now we need to go ahead and get rid of that kind of blue color that we had in this section. So we're going to go into Photoshop. We're going to open up that section. So this is the one I just rendered. This should seem pretty simple. You all, I think, are pretty savvy in Photoshop. So you're just going to move the tolerance up to around 10, so you can grab that. And then I want to get rid of this black here and just poche that in. So I'm going to hold down Shift, use the marquee tool, and just add that bit to the selection. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'll just hit delete. Oof, maybe not. Well, I guess that's fine. And then I'll save this. Alright, so once that's saved, I'm going to go into Illustrator and we're going to create basically create what you can see there in your screen. So I'm going to go tabloid. For my new settings, I'm going to make sure that they're landscape, and I'm putting in 3 boards. I'm not sure how many I'm going to really need, but that'll work. Alright, so you should have this plain artboard set up like this. Now I'm going to import by placing. I'm going to place my files. So I have these test room plans. I'm just going to select them all. Then click in the top corner of each of these artboards. Each of these. Okay, so I've got those in here. Now I'm going to place at least what I have as far as not export. Place the renderings. Now you notice something right off the bat. They do not scale right. Remember, those are being exported just as resolution and pixels. So you don't really have them on a sheet, so there's really nothing to keep them in the right scale. So what do we do to combat that? What we're going to do is we're going to scale them appropriately within this, and there's a reason why we're doing this in Illustrator, and hopefully this will help. Photoshop does not link images. Photoshop allows you to grab an image, select everything in it, and bring it over to another image, and in layers it's there, but it's all rastered information. It's not, if you have two overlaid images in Photoshop and then you find out, oh, I just changed my design, I'm going to do this other room, I'm going to do this other kind of sectional move, you're going to have to then render that again, bring it into the Photoshop, take off the other layer that was incorrect, and then get it all. You have to do these operations a lot, right, as you're designing. So what I'm trying to do is set up a system where there's very little tweaking and everything's updating kind of automatically, as long as you use naming conventions correctly. So what we're going to do, is now I'll scale this. We're going to do a little bit of layer management. So everything's brought in one layer here. I want to bring my renderings on its own layer. So I'm going to just call this that. And I'm going to grab, by selecting and holding down the Shift key. See, I can kind of see a little icon of the two, so I know those are my renderings. And I hold down the Shift key. You can see they're both selected here. And I'm just going to drag that up to rendering. So what we should see now, it only grabbed one. Okay, we'll just do the other one. Because we have both of those renderings now in a different layer. And then we'll just call this drawings. Okay. So I'm just going to lock the drawings for now. I'm also going to pull them above the renderings, because you see I can't see the drawings above the renderings right now, so if I pull that layer up above it, now I can. And then the other thing I'm going to do, I'm unlocking them real quick. Just select each one of them, holding down the Shift key so they're all selected, and I'm going to turn on, it's called transparency. Let me turn that back on. Transparency over here. Both in Photoshop and Illustrator, under transparency, you can change the way the image, in this case image, is looking. So if you use multiply, what it does is take everything that's white and it makes it transparent. And that is going to help us see it, but it's also going to help when we get these renderings in place to have them looking like a really nice drawing. So I'm going to lock the drawings so they don't move. I'm going to select one of the plan here. And I'm just going to start to, there's no good way, I haven't found a great way of getting this scaled correctly. I'm just going to be going to play around. Move it in place until I get it right. Zoom in. Looks like I'm pretty close. Need to scale it just a hair. Grab the corner here. Looks pretty good. Alright, call that good. I'm gonna lock that one in so I can't change it. Move over to my section. Start scaling it. That looks great. Okay, so now I've got that. Let's see. Looks like there's something a little off. That's great. Okay. All right. The one thing that doesn't look great, I'm just gonna look that in, is that we have this weird thing going on where we have the drawing has the block, but it's also being rendered, but they're not lining. So that's going to be a pretty quick fix. We're just going to go in here and select that block, that wall. I'm going to edit and just going to turn off that surface. There's no way, there's probably is a way, but there's no fun way to get that to align. So I'm just going to scroll up here, say none, turn that off, and then so now we don't see the surface, and then I'll have to go ahead and export them again. This will kind of illustrate why we wouldn't do this in Photoshop, because remember, all that scaling that had to work pretty hard to do, I'd be doing that in Photoshop also. And this move, seeing that moment, it's going to mean I'm going to have to do all that over again in Photoshop. I'm an illustrator. I'm handling this all by images just being placed in place. They can be updated. They're linked. Therefore, we should be good to go. Make sure that I'm in the right folder. Make sure that's on. It's okay. It's replacing. That's good. So we'll let that finish rendering there. And then when I go back into Illustrator, I should eventually get this dialog saying, yes, I want to update. It's gone. Looks like a pretty good drawing. That's fantastic. One thing I might tweak is I'd rather not see this line down here, so I'm just going to erase it. Save this again. Oh, I guess that's in the rendering. Oh well, that's alright. I mean, what I can do is I could go here in Illustrator and I could delete it, but that's alright. So that's a great. Alright, so the last thing I might do is you can see how it's a little amped up as far as materiality goes. That might be the section may look great. I feel like my plan's a little saturated. So the last thing you might want to do is I'm going to unlock them, select that, and I'm going to go back into this transparency, and I can start to affect like how much I want to see material. And so that's going to allow for the hidden lines to pop out, to be like more clear. And it really is depending on kind of what you're trying to achieve with your plans and sections. For right now, I would like you to start playing probably somewhere between 34 and say 50. Yeah, 83 is terrible, 59 is terrible. Maybe you could say somewhere between 50 and 33. You find the sweet spot. I do want to be able to see your overhead lines, so make sure that that's shown. And then for your section, you know, I'm less concerned, but you see how turning that down to say 50% or so just makes it really feel like you're looking at a drawing that's an idea of a rendering instead of a rendering. And I can't stress the importance of this. When you're in the design mode, You want it to be about the space, the articulation of material, sure, but that is, you're still working on that. That's like, this is, and you just want to render the idea. When you see things at full scale, saturated colors kind of get diffused, and it works. It works because I'm just looking around the world. Everything works. When you shrink that same image down to just on a screen or on 11 by 17, all that color, all that saturation gets to be too much. It's too intense. So desaturating it, in this case I'm just using that transparency to desaturate, is really going to help you just see what's important and not get kind of too carried away with all the other things. So I'm just turning that down to 40, just so that. These are going to be great. Okay.